Sonic the Hedgehog is my guy. I've made countless videos on the blue blur. Hell, I even did a whole month just talking about Sonic. I've loved Sonic as a character since I was a kid. I've also really loved his best friend, Knuckles, since I was a kid.
What am I, chopped liver?
Whenever I think of Sonic, I think of that iconic-ass music. Angel Island Zone, Flying Battery, Hydrocity. Even slightly more different sounding tunes like Open Your Heart from Sonic Adventure 1 all just radiate the energy of the blue hedgehog himself and ultimately define the iconic sound of Sonic. But today, we're not talking about Sonic. Shadow the Hedgehog. He ain't your granddad's hedgehog. Because he's black. And red. He's one of the coolest characters ever made. The creation of this character almost feels like it was a competition in the Sega boardroom. You thought Sonic was cool? Well, Shadow can run just as fast, and he can go super. Oh yeah? Well, he also rides a motorcycle. Well, why would he need a motorcycle if he can run just as fast as Sonic? Machine gun, motherfucker! He's just as cool as Sonic, but in such a different way. And with this different aura comes a whole new sound. So that begs the question, what is the sound of Shadow? Well, in order to figure that one out, we have to go back to Shadow's first ever appearance. Sonic Adventure 2 is pretty good. It's the coolest game ever made, with the most exciting story the franchise has seen yet, with a variety of different play styles and level designs, and it has some of the craziest set pieces in the Sonic franchise. But me personally, I prefer Sonic Adventure 1. Yeah, that's better. Sonic Adventure 2 introduces us to Shadow the Hedgehog, not only as Sonic's rival and the main antagonist you fight throughout the game, but also as a playable character in the Dark Story, where he gets to play stages exclusive to him. Shadow's story truly begins with Radical Highway, and man, what a bop! I see this song for Shadow in the same way I see Green Hill Zone for Sonic. Green Hill captures everything you need to know about Sonic. It's bubbly and energetic, but still quite easygoing, just like Sonic himself. It truly makes you feel like the world is your oyster, and you can do whatever you set your mind to. But Radical Highway is the exact contrast to this. This is the sound of a man on a mission. There's no room for optimism, there's a job and it has to get done. Immediately upon hearing this song, you can just tell that it's not made for Sonic. More intense percussion with heavy use of electric guitars make this one sound so striking and almost sinister. When playing this level, it just immerses me into the character of Shadow as much as humanly possible. Good shit. And Shadow's other stages are home to bangers as well. Skyrail keeps the same vibe as Radical Highway, albeit with some slightly more fun-sounding instruments. White Jungle ditches the vibe of Radical Highway and Skyrail and instead sounds more primal, especially in comparison to Sonic's Jungle stage. They even got my good buddy Brimbles the Monkey in the studio on this one. And Final Chase is one with an almost overwhelming amount of different sounds, all clashing together to make you really feel the pressure of this final level. And almost all of these songs have this underlying garbled alien-sounding voice saying something incomprehensible, which represents Shadow's self-doubt going through the main story. For a game like this, that's shockingly deep. Bravo, Vince! And not to mention my favorite Shadow track in the game with For True Story, the song that plays while you kick Sonic's ass at the end of the game. This song really feels like two icons clashing, equally skilled in every way, neither better than the other. A true face-off, a test of skill. I love that it plays for both the hero and Dark Stories, yet still feels more like a Shadow song than a Sonic song, representing how Adventure 2 is really much more Shadow's game than Sonic's. Also, Live and Learn is good, but Open Your Heart is better. Sonic Heroes is a game. Wanting the Sonic series to appeal to old and new fans alike, Sonic Heroes ditches the adventure formula and makes a game where you play as 3 characters at the same time. One of the stories in the game putting you in control of Omega, Rouge, and of course, Shadow the Hedgehog. This game takes a step back from Adventure 2 and instead gives all 4 teams the same general levels to pass through, thus giving them all the same music. And that's really disappointing. This doesn't feel like Shadow at all! Luckily though, this game does give us one iconic track for Shadow, This Machine by Julian K. And this one is a certified Jackwissy banger. This is Shadow's first true lyrical song. Some of his songs in Adventure 2, especially his boss themes, have lyrics, but they're sort of hidden and distorted by the sound mixing, and they aren't really at the forefront of the song. On the contrast, this song is straight whipping them out for Harambe. This takes the musical foundation set for Shadow in the last game and multiplies them to feel even more dark and edgy. And it works. It has more of a techno-metal aesthetic than something like Sonic's rock aesthetic, and this is something that'll carry over for Shadow in most of his appearances to this day. This song's 3 verses are structured... This song's verses are structured around each member of Team Dark, but ultimately comes together in the perfect theme song for these characters. Omega even gets a solo at the end. Ho, here we are. Shadow's first big game, aptly named Shadow the Hedgehog.
What the fuck?
After Heroes' disappointing lack of Shadow-centric tracks, this game feels like Sonic Team atoning for a sin. This is truly the game where they go all in on Shadow's cool factor, and locks in that iconic sound that defines the character. The main level themes for this game have the same vibe that was present in Adventure 2, and considering this is a game full of them, if I went over every single song, we'd be here all fucking day. And I don't got that kind of time. Where this game's real bangers come from are its lyrical songs. And there are actually a few of them this time, including one that isn't even in the final game, Broken by Sins of a Divine Mother. And this one ditches the techno-metal vibes of previous Shadow songs in favor of a more grunge-like sound, and I think this is perfect for Shadow. Knowing it was meant to be an end credits song makes me like the song way more, as it doesn't have that fast-paced energy that most Sonic songs tend to have. This one truly captures the melancholic feel of Shadow, while still capturing that feeling of the adventure is over, and now you can rest, but not without your trauma. And this feeling shoots it to the top of my list, and honestly, I think it's just a good song, even outside of the standard of being video game music. I would put this in my fucking playlist. There's also Who I Am by Magnify, which is infinitely more intense than Broken, but still a lot more grungy than previous songs. And the heavier focus on grunge makes sense when you remember this game came out in the early 2000s. And I think that really enhances the vibe of these two songs. Shadow is such a character rooted in time. He's everything that was cool in the late 90s and early 2000s rolled into one character, which I like. He's like a look back into that era, and I think our standards for what was cool back then were a lot, well, cooler than what our standards currently are. Which is why he holds up so well. And you know what else holds up pretty well? I Am All of Me is the peak of Shadow the Hedgehog songs. This is everything about the character personified in one 3-minute and 51-second song. It has the intensity and the pace that Shadow needs, the lyrics are angsty and edgy, and the chorus? My god, the fucking chorus!
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside and hold on for dear life. Do you remember?
When I think of Shadow the Hedgehog, this is the song I hear in my head. It is legitimately up there with some of my favorite fictional character themes ever. Everything you need to know about this character can be learned while listening to this song. This was Crush 40's first real attempt at making a song specifically for Shadow. And honestly, I think after all these years, it's still their best. This song is all over this game, and I think it's pretty clear as to why. It's the epitome of Shadow. Oh boy, here we are. Sonic 06. No, I've never actually played Sonic 06. I've only played Sonic 06 Air. But this game is infamous. And not even just for one thing. There's the controls, the bugs, there's the story, the kiss, the bugs, the silver boss, the bugs, the loading screens, the bugs. Pretty much everything from this game has been talked about at length on the internet. But I see very few people talk about Shadow's story. Everybody's too busy talking about the Mach speed sections and their weird controls and basically anything else to do with Sonic himself, but Shadow's part of this game largely goes untalked about these days, outside of a few key moments. Sonic 06 went to the Sonic Hero school of being lame as fuck. This game once again had all three Hedgehogs traverse the same selection of stages, thus giving every route the same exact music. I'll give it one thing though, the music in this game is more themed around the environment itself instead of being themed around the characters. So the music does work with all three, but I still would have loved some more tracks unique to Shadow. But that's not to say we didn't get any. In Silver's route, you actually have to fight Shadow, and he comes with his own original boss theme.
Psych!
Shadow's boss gets the same generic theme every boss fight against one of these Hedgehogs has in this game, and man, that's just disappointing. Yeah, it fits the boss, but why couldn't we have gotten something tailored specifically to Shadow, instead of just being a vague battle theme? But at least this game gives us a brand new Crush 40 song in the form of All Hail Shadow, and man, this song fucks hard. It keeps the same energy as I Am All of Me, but has a little bit of a Radical Highway vibe to it as well, which in some ways makes it feel like the definitive Shadow song. If I Am All of Me was a perfect introduction to Shadow, then this song is like seeing your old friend Shadow. It just feels good to hear this song. But what a lot of people don't talk about is that this song actually originates in Shadow the Hedgehog, which came out just 1 year before this, with that rendition being by Magnify, and honestly, I like that version better. It's not as iconic as the Crush 40 version, but it has a more energetic feel, which I like. There's something about the first rendition of a song that just feels scrappier. And I think for something like All Hail Shadow, that just fits the vibe of the song more. The Crush 40 version sounds a lot more refined and honestly controlled. And in the original Magnify version, you can really just hear the band rocking out and going crazy. And I think for a character as unstable and unpredictable as Shadow, that vibe just fits better. Now, Sonic 06 wasn't the last appearance of Shadow. He went on to appear in most major Sonic releases, as well as getting a brand new game to himself just last year. But I feel like 06 bookends this era really nicely. Shadow just hasn't been the same since the early 2000s. They really took his vibe.
You've got this, Sonic.
Hell yeah, man, that's my coworker! Not counting Shadow Generations, 06 was truly the last time Shadow had a campaign to himself, with original music made just for him. I think it's interesting to look back at the formative years of Shadow, back when his character wasn't a total lock yet. The way he evolves through his first 4 appearances, and also the way his sound evolves with him, just fascinates me. Just like his blue counterpart, he came onto the scene and immediately brought iconic tracks with him that still follow him everywhere he goes to this day. And I, Jack Wissey, personally cannot wait to see where Shadow goes next and where his iconic sound goes with him.